Welcome, viewers, to Historical Journeys. On a burdening day in 2019, a gathering of archaeologists is at last very nearly getting their result. They've been unearthing a site in southern Israel. In any case, presently all the difficult work is near proving to be fruitful, and the ground underneath them is an exceptional compartment. Furthermore, with just the right amount of examination, the specialists will come to accept that this item might address hard proof that a specific figure from the Holy Book truly existed. Archaeologists uncovered a 3,100-year-old curio that might demonstrate the presence of a scriptural figure. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It only takes a second, and you won't miss any of our future videos. Let's get started. The specialists that day had been working at a spot in the House Maria Woods, which itself sits in the Judean lower regions. This entire area is of focal, notable, and strict significance, as it's referenced on numerous occasions in the Hebrew scripture. On this event, the scientists have found an old divided container lying underneath the surface. Maybe this disclosure wouldn't appear so momentous. However, the specialists knew unique, so they broke down it more meticulously, and before long arrived at a wild resolution. At the point when they endeavored to date the pot, the specialists found that it was remarkably old. It came from around the year 1100 BCE, which had fascinating ramifications. This implied it followed back to a similar period when a specific book of the Holy Book was composed. The scriptural text being referred to is the Book of Judges, which antiquarians guarantee portrays occasions from around 1200 to 1050 BCE. Given the timescales involved here, it is actually very challenging to find out about such a period. So on the off chance that this run in the ground can assist with revealing insight into that time, then, at that point, it truly is something uniquely great. This is in no way, shape, or form the greatest site around, however, it's regardless ending up critical. Given the more extensive locale where it sits, however, that perhaps isn't excessively is to be expected. All things considered, the container established the site seems to interface the locale with the Book of Judges. This is a significant assortment of compositions from the Hebrew scripture, which is remembered to have been gathered sometime around 550 BCE. This was during the time of the Babylonian exile, when numerous Jews had to leave Israel by the Babylonians. Considering this unique situation, then the Book of Judges is to a great extent zeroed in on what unfamiliar powers were meaning for Israel. Accordingly, the Jewish God rebuffed them by permitting their property to tumble to unfamiliar trespassers. The Book of Judges is characterized by a rehashed rise and fall in the fortunes of Israel's kin. The residents will encounter a period of difficulty under unfamiliar occupation. However, they will then request God's guide. As opposed to the title of the scriptural text titled, the tale's center wasn't around decided as we would think about them. This is reflected in the Jewish expression used to depict them, which is shafe, that, as per reference book Britannica, this more precisely means ruler as opposed to pass judgment. The Book of Judges then, at that point, recounts the narrative of these pioneers who were known to be charming figures. The people evidently expected to liberate Israel from its unfamiliar or occupiers. The appointed authorities were loved as the nonentities of the place that is known for Israel. We can see this disposition communicated in a statement engraved on an old tablet, which was uncovered back in 1929. Pass's judgment on weren't chosen for power, nor were they chosen based on familial bonds. These people were rather supposed to be picked by God himself, who might choose them based on their authority abilities. Obviously, it was an appointed authority's responsibility to repair individuals of Israel's relationship with the ruler. What most described the adjudicators was their own appeal, which they would use to hold influence over individuals. Moxie could be seen as a kind of otherworldly ability to be employed by the appointed authorities. Many individuals held the job of an adjudicator at various moments. However, the Book of Judges itself is just worried about a limited handful. These incorporate figures like Deborah, Encampment Samson, and Gideon, and it was thanks to them that the residents of Israel had the option to conquer their unfamiliar oppressors. Deborah is one of the more prominent adjudicators who was referenced in the scriptural text. Deborah likewise participated in verse, could decipher dreams, and obviously had an appeal that appeared to have been skilled to her from God. Beside Deborah, Gideon is a pioneer who includes unmistakably in the Book of Judges. He is said to have turned into an appointed authority following a visit from a holy messenger who had been sent by God. Evidently, it was the master's desire that Gideon rule over individuals of Israel and assist them with heading out their adversaries. Gideon might have been an imposing adjudicator, Beside that, however, Gideon has likewise been referenced in the book of scriptures as a great representation of a reliable person. Gideon possesses an unmistakable job in the book of Judges, yet we can't precisely say how exact the text depiction of him is. The equivalent goes for the more extensive subtleties contained in the text, as certifiable archaeological proof from the period when it was composed is deficient. Things may now have changed, however. The garbage that specialists revealed in southern Israel in 2019 may address certifiable proof of Gideon's presence. Fundamentally, the antiquity traces all the way back to when he was dynamic, and it bears some content on its surface. Specialists think this says strong, which was a moniker for Gideon. Addressing the hours of Israel, a specialist from George Washington College made sense of that. This interpretation of the text on the container is presumably precise. According to his perspective, the composition on the container isn't altogether obvious to peruse, so it ought to be treated with distrust. Regardless, the revelation of the container addresses progress in an archaeological venture that has been occurring beginning around 2015. It is being driven by individuals from the Israel Artifacts Authority, the Organization of Paleohistory of the Jewish College of Jerusalem, and Macquarie College in Sydney, Australia. However, this specific thing might be up there with the best sets aside in all that opportunity. The Corbeck cluster site has really been exposed to archaeological tests since the 19100 years. And those specialists from England were behind the work. In any case, in 2015, it was chosen by a completely unique group to go there and begin working once more. They plainly comprehended how significant the region was. The container basically legitimizes this choice, as it very well may be a truly significant disclosure. Most authorities on the matter would agree it might have put away oil, medication, or perhaps aroma back in its day. It's unmistakable then that a ton of data can be sorted out with these refined, insightful strategies. The specialists don't configure without question everything out, however. There are still things passed on not entirely clear, like the ink utilized on the container. It's been proposed that this substance was produced using iron oxide and dark debris, which would line up with other found relics from a similar period. As indicated by the Hours of Israel, the restricted data specialists need to work with implies that making an adjusted story of the jug is very difficult, in spite of the more equivocal parts of the container and its SEV experiences. Research has let us know a few things. At the point when George Washington College's Christopher Rose Doe inspected it, he could draw on his skill as a language and engraving master to plan his own considerations about the item's SEV experiences. The letters on the container look and sound very like Hebrew. However, an established truth, the letters in order is in from that language. It's really an alphabet from which Hebrew would develop in the previous hundreds of years. Hebrew College of Jerusalem teacher Yosef Garfinkel expounded on the language seen on the container in a meeting with the Jerusalem Post. He told the paper in July 2021. The alphabetic content was developed by the Canaanites and the Egyptian impact right around 1800 BCE. They kept on utilizing this content, which advanced from Egyptian symbolic representations in the Late Bronze Age and Iron Age computer-based intelligence. The Hebrew and Phoenician contents were grown exclusively in the center of the 10th century BCE. However, what might be said about the actual engraving? Indeed, specialists Garfinkel and Saargainer made sense of the name as natural from scriptural custom in the Book of Judges as an elective name for the appointed authority Gideon ben Yosh. In scriptural practice, as per the good book, Gideon coordinated a little multitude of 300 troopers and assault the Midianites around evening time. Close might acquire, considering the geological distance between the Shadowfell and the Jezebel Valley. This engraving might allude to another solid, and not the Gideon have scriptural custom, albeit the chance can't be precluded that the container had a place with the adjudicator Gideon. Regardless, the name Strong was obviously in like manner use at the hour of the scriptural adjudicators. On the off chance that this container truly is connected to Gideon, it would be an extraordinary turn of events. Hard proof from the scriptural adjudicators' time is practically inconceivable. So that is the reason the engraving on the container has created such a ruckus. Yet this container may very well affirm the presence of Gideon, which would suggest the Book of Judges is somehow or another honest to the real world. That is a significant disclosure in that it backs up the good book, similar to a to some degree reliable source. It could basically be proof of individuals from that time elapsing on stories with the assistance of articles. Perhaps the engraving on the cup was an approach to safeguarding the memory of Gideon and giving it to people in the future. Beside all the other things, the container and its engraving have assisted specialists with acquiring an understanding into how language spread around the district that large number of 1,000s of years prior, and an article in the Hours of Israel. Michael Drowsiness told the paper for quite a long time, there were for all intents and purposes no engravings of this period and district, to the point that we were not even certain what the letters in order resembled around them. There was a hole. Some even contended that the letter set was obscure in the locale, that there were no recorders, and that the Holy Book should subsequently have been composed a lot later. Revelations, for example, this container are so important in assisting history specialists with sorting out what was happening in Israel when the Hebrew scriptures was being assembled. Thinking about the container and its suggestions, Langell Walk included. These engravings are as yet uncommon. However, they are gradually filling the hole. They not just record the development of the letters in order, they show that there was truth be told, coherence in culture, language, and customs. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay updated with our latest videos, subscribing is the way to go. Just click that red button below and become a part of our channel family.